Welcome to another chapter of our beautiful book of Bereshit, Genesis. I'm excited because we're finally entering Abraham, the story, the beautiful story of our father Abraham, Popular Abraham, right? The real Papa. Because sorry, I started this recording off already. But no, I mean, you know what I mean? Because we grew up hearing first, like we were talking about the Catholic Church, how, like the Pope is literally Papa, like it's literally father, the word father, right? And then in Christianity, you have many churches where they call, like the spiritual father, they call them father or whatever. And I'm not saying spiritual father is biblically incorrect. I'm not saying that. But what I'm trying to say is that when the word speaks of our forefathers, it's literally only referring to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I hope you guys realize that, and we're going to see why. Because they are literally the ones that commenced the beautiful covenant that we are all, by his beautiful grace and mercy, part of today. So they are the initiators that were handpicked by our Father, our Creator, right? Our Most High God. He hand selected them, and we're going to see why, right? There is a reason specifically with Abraham, why he selected Abraham and and why we are to follow his footsteps, meaning his example, right? Why we are to keep the same walk basically that Abraham did. So, having said that, we're gonna go ahead and begin reading. Today is a much shorter chapter, meaning more or less the same in length, but shorter in the sense many not as much detail to expand upon. However, it is still very rich and it's still very deep. So, and I'm gonna take my time, like I always say. I'm not gonna rush through it, but if anyone can read Genesis, the entire chapter 12 for me, by all means.
I can read.
Okay, go ahead, Yaz.
Okay. Now the Most High said to Abram, get out of your country, from your family, and from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you. And in you, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abraham departed as the Most High had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abraham was 75 years old. And when he departed from Haran, then Abraham took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran, and they departed to go to the land of
Canaan.
Canaan. And they came to the land of Canaan. Abraham passed through the land of the place of Shechem as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were in the land. And the Most High appeared to Abram, and said to your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar to the Most High who had appeared to him. Then he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on east, and there he built an altar to the Most High and called on the name of the Adon. So Abraham journeyed on still toward the south.
Oh, sorry.
Now there was a famine in the land, and Abraham went to Egypt to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land. And it came to pass, when he was close to entering Egypt, that he said to Sarai his wife, indeed I know you are a woman of beautiful countenance. Therefore it will happen, when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. Please say you are my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that I may live because of you. So it was, when Abram came into Egypt, and the Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful, and the princess of Pharaoh also saw her and commended her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken to Pharaoh's house. He treated Abram well for her sake. He had sheep, oxen, male donkey, male and female servants, female donkeys, and camels. But the Most High plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister? I might have might have taken her as my wife. Now, therefore, here is your wife, take her and go your way. So Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had.
Okay. So we're going to see a pattern of this same story, and I'm going to try to connect it later, but we will see it again, come up again with Abram. Actually, I think by then he's Abraham. And then we're going to see it with his son Isaac as well. Something I do want to say, I did not include I failed. I failed at this. I waited last minute and then I didn't have time. I did not include the connecting portions of Jasher. If anyone has it and wants to share where they are, by all means, or anyone in the chat. However, I do want to give in some context found in the book of Jasher. What I do want to recommend moving forward, because sometimes because of time, I cannot just grab all the scriptures and read them because it will make the study very, very lengthy. I do suggest that read on your own at home. And if you don't have a copy of the book of Jasher, you can even find an audio book online, even on YouTube. And I highly, highly encourage that as you study Genesis, either by yourself or with us, that you go hand in hand with the book of Jasher because it's going to add on all the extra details that is missing in our canon Bibles. And why do I say that? Because in the book of Jasher, it speaks about there's a gap here between Genesis 11 and Genesis 12 that is not mentioned in our canon Bible. If you guys recall last week, we ended chapter 11 with the genealogy of Terah, and that's where Abram comes in, right? But it leaves it at that. But if we go, actually, let me just go back one chapter so you could see where we ended. Um, Here, chapter 11, verse 31, it says, And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and they went out with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan, and they came to Haran and dwelt there. So the days of Terah were 200 exactly. So it continues there. So why am I talking about this? Because Terah here is not specified that Terah was actually worshiping other gods. You can kind of see it, and I believe we gave scriptures that reveals that even within the canon that further confirms that. Let me see if it actually says it here because now I don't remember. No, I don't think it really says it in Genesis. But anyhow, what I wanted to say about Terah is that Terah was actually worshiping the gods of the Chaldeans. And where they go looking for another place. But we see in the account of Joshua that it adds the details that Abram did not want to follow his father's footsteps. And instead, what he ends up doing is actually burning all of the idols that the dad Terah had in his house. So he burns the idols. It's so much, guys. Like, honestly, it's so much that I could do a whole study just on the portion of Jasher, of all the things that happened between then and now that we're reading of the promises of Abraham. But again, I do want to focus mainly on the canonical scriptures for the purpose of this study because I want you to be able to see with the Bible that you have in front of you. Just I do encourage once again that you go back to Joshua and you see the details. There's so much that happened to Abraham before here, verse 1, where it says, Now the Adon had said to Abram, Get out of your country from your family. Okay, so there's a reason why he says from your family and from your father's house to a land that I will show you. So he specifically gives command to leave his family and leave his father's house. There's a reason for that because once again, he had burned the idols from the father's house. The father, there's even an account with how it was revealed by the Magi, which they had wisdom in the constellations, just as the Magi in the times of Messiah, right? So they had wisdom in the constellations, and in the constellations, they were able to read that this man Abraham, before he was turned into Abraham, had a special calling to be set apart. And so since Abraham's youth, they were trying to basically exterminate him. Abraham, if I'm not mistaken, was hidden in Shem's household, right? Am I correct? It was with Shem, with the real school of the prophets. Yes, like I like to call it the real school of the prophets, right? He was hidden with Shem, and he was instructed directly by Shem, guys. There's a reason later on why we see Abraham giving a tenth of all to this Melchizedek, which we find in the book of Jasher. It's actually Shem. And so, anyhow, there's so many connections here, but I just want to give you the reason why it's saying to leave his father's house was because the dad was following after pagan gods. And Abraham was already set apart, not only in word, but in action. He was proving that though he came from a nation, meaning he came from a household that did not follow the ways of the Most High, he had already determined in his heart, I will obey you at all cost. And that is the key of this study tonight. Okay, so connecting with verse 1, I'm just going to read. And by the way, if you notice here, Acts 7, 2 to 5, it's a beautiful summary stated by Stephen. If you've never read the whole Old Testament and you want to hear the story in a condensed way, go to chapter 7. And I encourage you read Acts chapter 7 because it's the account of Stephen before he's stoned to death. He basically recounts it to the Pharisees to point them how Messiah was the promised seed from the times of Abraham. So anyhow, that's a beautiful narration, again found in the New Testament. But we're not going to read it. I am only going to read verses 2 to 3 from Acts 7. But let's do some connections here. So taking it back to Genesis 15:7, then he said to him, I am the Adon who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it. We're going to see as we move on in chapters that he constantly shows up to Abraham and brings out the fact that he brought him out. He brought him out of a place of Ur of the Chaldeans, right? He's taking him out of a place for a reason. Isaiah 29:11. The whole vision has become to you like the words of a book that is sealed, which man delivered to one who is literate, saying, read this, please. And he says, I cannot, for it is sealed. This is connecting with verse 1. Hold on. Why is it freezing up on me? And then this has to do with the prophecy, with the promise, not the prophecy, but the promise that was given to Abram, meaning to the land that he will show him, has to do with the sealing of the book and the revelation, therefore, later on to his seed. I don't know why my computer is freezing up. Okay. Ruth 2:11. This is an important one. And Boaz answered and said to her, it has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. In case you guys have never read the book of Ruth, Ruth was a Moabite, meaning she was a Gentile. Not only a Gentile, but one of the worst kinds of Gentiles. Moabites came from the line of we're going to see later, of one of the daughters of Lot, because she mixed with her father's seed. And from her seed comes Moab, hence the Moabites. And we know that they are cursed from the beginning as a result. So a Moabitess woman leaves her household, meaning leaves her culture behind, leaves her worship to other gods behind, and now decides to follow her husband and her family, and his family, I mean, and worship, as she tells her mother-in-law later, like, your God, your people will be my people and your God will be my God, she's basically saying the same action as Abraham. I will worship, your Elohim. I'm going to follow your ways, and I'm going to leave my cultures, what I know, I'm going to leave it behind. And so that's why I think this example of Ruth connects beautifully with what Abraham did. Not only that, we know that Messiah comes directly from the line of Ruth, meaning Ruth birthed Obed, I think is his name pronounced, and from Obed comes Jesse, and Jesse David, and we know Messiah comes directly from the line of David. So I just wanted to point that out. We also have Numbers 22, verse 6. Therefore, please come at once, curse his people for me, for they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them out of the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and him who you curse is cursed. This is the story of Balaam in the book of Numbers, in case you guys don't remember. And this is when Balak had asked Balaam to basically curse Israel. right? But here's just confirming the same promise he gave to Abraham. Over here it says, um, oh, this is actually connecting with verse 2, where it says, I will make you a great nation, I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Verse 3, actually, I will bless those who bless you, I will curse him who curses you, and in all your families, all the earth shall be blessed. So it's more connecting, with all three, but specifically verse 3, as well as Numbers 24:9. He bows down, he lies down as a lion, and as a lion, who shall rouse him? Blessed is he who blesses you, and curses he who curses you. And all of this is obviously in pertaining Israel, his people Israel, which come from the line, the seed, straight seed promised to Abraham. And then we're going to read Acts 7, 2 to 3, Stephen's recount. And he said, Brethren and fathers, listen. The God of glory appeared to our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran, and said to him, Get out of your country and from your relatives, and come to a land that I will show you. By the way, guys, this whole land idea of land, yes, while it was a physical one that they were searching for, Abraham understood deeper than that. He understood, and we see it in the book of Hebrews. Here, Hebrews 11:8, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out not knowing where he was going. And by the way, I didn't put the whole part of 11, I just realized, because if you keep reading, it says that he was looking for a country that is not of this earth, is basically in heaven. So the land that he was, the inheritance that he was looking to receive in the land was the New Jerusalem. And he understood that, which is why he gladly obeyed, though his eyes could not physically see. And that's key right there. We also have Genesis 13, verse 9. Is not the whole land before you? Please separate from me. If you take the left, then I will go to the right. Or if you go to the right, then I will go to the left. And this has to do when Lot, later on, his nephew, goes with him. It's just to show you that Abraham is telling him, separate from me. Even though he was a family member and he was following him, he is asking him to separate from him, because he was asked to literally leave everyone behind. Like, I'm going to guide you and I'm going to take care of you. We later see Abraham, trying to rescue Lot, sending the angels to rescue Lot, right? In Sodom, and the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. However, we do see him trying to separate from him physically as a result. Yes, yes.
I was thinking about how once I told one of the disciples, let the dead go bury the dead, like just leave everything behind.
Yeah, and it's not that you're literally gonna forget about your family either. A lot of people misinterpret that, but it's more so, take up your cross and follow me and focus. Don't get distracted. You know
Partake from they partake in.
that part.
Because you can
That
love
part. That's
someone,
key.
but love is not partaking in their
Come
darkness.
on, and a lot of the times, the family members will lead you to sin
Yes.
and to leave the ways of Messiah. So that is key. Genesis 7. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, because I was also thinking of I was thinking verse of come out of her my people, because it's like kind of like what he was doing, like
Yeah.
because he was crossing over, like we're
Yeah.
talking about, and then also the verse where Messiah says like he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Obviously, like you said, it's not
Yeah.
that you hate your family.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
you just don't partake in like what they.
Absolutely. I love how you're always ahead of the game with the connections. They'll come out of her, my people's gonna come out. It's part of it. But yes, Genesis 18, I mean, sorry, 17:46. As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. We spoke about this last week. I'm bringing it up again. And again, this is why Abraham is the true forefather, right? He's the true one that we can say the patriarch, right? He is the father of many nations, meaning all the nations, not just the Israelites, many nations. We kind of spoke about that last week, right? No longer shall your name be called Abram, but your name shall be called Abraham. For I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And we know that Messiah comes directly from his line, including David, Saul, all the kings, whether righteous or unrighteous, they all came from the line of Abraham. So the whole point of this is, obviously I'm getting ahead of the game here because we will study Genesis 17 in depth, but the covenant started with the fact that he was asked to leave the nations. And as a return, he is turned into the father of many nations. It's a full circle. I don't know if you guys see that. Genesis 18. Since Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. And it's crazy because that's literally how it is. A great nation, meaning we know that Israel came out of Abraham, but we know that through Abraham, and we see it in Paul's letters. Paul is very meticulous in mentioning this in the book of Galatians and Colossians and Ephesians and all the letters. Make sure to explain how all the nations are to go be grafted into Israel, because through Abraham's seed we shall all be blessed once we go in the same covenant, right? Genesis 46:3. So he said, I am the Elohim, the God of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. And this is already not Abraham, this is Jacob. Okay. But understand that Jacob, obviously, that's when the whole promise is fulfilled through his 12 sons, the 12 tribes of Israel, right? We have again Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is the third. You know how it says it takes 2 to 3 witnesses to confirm a matter in scriptures. So it's almost like he confirms a covenant with Abraham, the second time with Isaac, and then the third time with Jacob, and then he seals it. So just wanted to show that. I don't think it's by coincidence. We also have Deuteronomy 26:5. And you shall answer and say before the Most High, your Elohim, my father was a Syrian, about to perish, and he went down to Egypt and dwelt there, few in number, and there he became a nation, great, mighty, and populous. And this is obviously the Most High speaking to now Moses, and when the people are already, the Israelites are already in the wilderness. But this is just to show how, even though his father was a Syrian, which was of the nations, it says he went down to Egypt and dwelt there, and then how they went few in number, and how there they became a great nation. And they multiplied. We see it all the way through Exodus, how they became exceedingly in number, right? 1 Kings 3:8. And your servant is in the midst of your people, whom you have chosen, a great people, too numerous to be numbered or counted. And we're going to see that throughout scriptures. The promise has been fulfilled even today. It hasn't stopped. Genesis 22:17. Blessing I will bless you, and multiplying I will multiply your descendants as the star of the heaven and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your descendants shall possess the gate of their enemies. And this is the blessing he gives, I believe, either to Isaac or Jacob. I don't remember exactly where we are there in chapter 22. But it's the same exact blessing that he gives to Abraham. Genesis 24:35. The Adon has blessed my master greatly. This one is with Isaac for sure. The Adon has blessed my master greatly, and he has become great, and he has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, to male and female servants, and camels and donkeys. And I posted something earlier today on my Instagram, and I want to take advantage and show that these blessings that the great men or the patriarchs, so let's just focus on the patriarchs in this matter, right? We're blessed with. Understand that the Most High was allowing them to have physical riches in this life for a purpose, because they were the fathers of all the literally Israel, and they had to multiply. And so they were exceedingly blessed. Not only that, he also blessed them because their heart had the right posture. They did not care about this wealth and riches. As a matter of fact, they would gladly share it with others. And we see that with all of them, with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And so the point of the blessing is not to say, if the Most High is backing you up financially or with physical riches, that means that, you're blessed. No. Blessings is actually something spiritual. It's eternal blessings. It's something Messiah says that you store in heaven, not here on earth, where moth, it says it destroys it, right? And so, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob could care less about these things. However, I do want to bring it up because we see his servant here saying that the Most High has blessed my master greatly and has become great, and he has given him, So he's actually more considering that he has become great, meaning he has multiplied, his flock, his herds, everything. So it's not to say that that's true riches, by the way. I just wanted to clarify that. And we also have Genesis 28:4, and give you the blessing of Abraham to you and your descendants with you, that you may inherit the land in which you are a stranger, which God gave to Abraham. So understand here that it's saying, and give you the blessing of Abraham. What was the blessing of Abraham? It was eternal life. To inherit the land meant to inherit being part of the New Jerusalem. Understand that. And look what it says, that you may inherit the land in which you are a stranger. Meaning you came as a Gentile. You came in as a nobody. Prophetic right there, which the Most High had given to Abraham. So understand that that is a true blessing. Zechariah 8:13. And it shall come to pass that just as you were a curse among the nations, O house of Judah and house of Israel, here's talking to the two kingdoms that were split by then, right? So I will save you, and you shall be a blessing. Do not fear, let your hands be strong. This is the fulfillment of, his Israel being restored when he redeems his people. Obviously, this is a prophecy found in Zechariah that has to do with end times. But notice how part of the blessing prophecy is that Israel shall be a blessing to other nations, which is the same prophecy he gives to Abraham. In you all nations shall be blessed. Which again, what is that blessing? That you may inherit the land.
Going to be grafted in.
Yes, yes. And then bringing in Paul in Galatians 3:14, that the blessing of Abraham might come upon the Gentiles in Yahshua HaMashiach, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. You see it right there. Paul understood all this. And I love when you read Paul understanding the Torah, because you see it, that the blessing of Abraham wasn't riches. It wasn't even the physical land of Canaan. Is the promise of the Spirit through faith. Meaning, what is the promise of the Spirit through faith? That we're grafted into Israel and we inherit eternal life in the New Jerusalem. That is the promise. We also have, I'm going through all the first verses that connect with the, 1 through 3, because after that, it's going to go by very quickly. And I do have a few, not a lot, but a few slides, which is going to basically sum everything that we're reading now. So that's why I did it backwards today. I want to go with the connecting precepts so then we can see the full picture. So Genesis 24:35, the Adon has blessed my master greatly. Oh, I already read that one. Sorry. Genesis 27:29, let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's son bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. So once again, we see the continuance of the same blessing that he gives Abraham. We see it later on through Isaac, we see it through Jacob, and then we see it even through Joseph. We know Joseph later becomes Ephraim, like in terms of a nation, in terms of a tribe, becomes Ephraim, his son. And Ephraim is the one that's scattered. Ephraim takes over basically the northern kingdom of the house of Israel. And that's the one that gets scattered throughout all the nations. So Joseph, AKA Ephraim, becomes the Gentiles, right? And so, but we still see the fulfillment of this one of Zechariah 8:13, house of Judah and house of Israel. So I will save you and shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. So it goes perfectly with this one. Blessed be those who bless you. Exodus 23:22. Let me just check the chat really quick because I forgot to look at it. Oh, Alina had shared something. She says, I love the analogy with stars and Abraham, because not only does the Most High promise Abraham that his descendants will be as innumerable as a star in the sky, but the night Abraham was born, yes, in the sky, a large star comes from the east and ran in the heaven and swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. Yes, and that is found those details are found in the account of Jasher, which is why I encourage you guys, go read Jasher if you've never read it. And in case you read it before, I go back and reread it, because those details add so much to this full picture. It's beautiful. But yes, it's beautiful how he uses that same analogy when speaking to him about his promise. It will be innumerable as the stars in the heaven. It's beautiful. Thank you for adding that, Alina. Exodus 23:22. But if you indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. And we know now this is in the times of Exodus and speaking to Moses, or Moses speaking to the people. But I mean, sorry, the Most High speaking to the people through Moses. But again, it's about obedience. If you obey his voice, whose voice? The Most High, right? Of all that Moses was speaking, which was, he was being a vessel, speaking on behalf of the Most High. So, in other words, the blessing that he gives Abraham, that and through you all the nations shall be blessed, there is a condition. And there was a condition to the promise, even beginning with Abraham. Obedience was key. If you obey his voice. And that is the way to be grafted in, by the way. It's obedience. Genesis 18:18 says, Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. I think I had read that one already. Genesis 22:18, in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. And again, the condition continues. Obedience to his voice, to his word. Obedience is key. You shall be blessed. The blessing has nothing to do with physical riches. He will give you what you need in this life, whether you need it or not. Like it depends where your heart is at. But the blessing is not this world, anything that's in this world. The blessing is that you inherit eternal life, that you become part of his people, and that you enter into the promised land. Understand that that's why obedience is so necessary. Genesis 26:4. And I will make your descendants multiply again as the stars of heaven. I will give to your descendants all these lands, and in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. We see that the same promise continues with the other sons, with Jacob, with Isaac, right? Genesis 28:14, again, same promise. Also, your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east, to the north and the south, and in you and in your seed, all the families of the earth shall be blessed.
Mm.
We Somebody want to share something? Who wants to speak? Okay, let's continue. Psalm 72:17. His name shall endure forever. His name shall continue as long as the sun, and men shall be blessed in him. All nations shall call him blessed. And again, blessed, what does it mean? It's eternal life, kingdom riches, right? Yes, yes.
I was gonna share that when you were talking, I was thinking about the rich man and Lazarus when they ended up like they both had died, and how literally like Lazarus was like on the beautiful side, and then how the
Oh,
rich
the
man,
parable that he,
yes,
okay,
and then
yes.
the rich guy had ended up in like hell,
Yeah,
Hades, right?
yeah.
So it's kind of crazy that's even Messiah used to talk about it, like you could have everything in this life, but if you don't have eternal life, you will perish.
That is such a great example, because
Yeah.
that guy, well, that example that Messiah uses, it's basically to highlight, because the guy, that the Lazarus guy that you're talking about, he was actually homeless,
Person,
and
yeah.
he was poor, and look how he inherits eternal life.
Beautiful.
And he had he was sitting in Abraham's bosom, right? Meaning he was grafted in. He was part of the promise. Oh my gosh, I just saw it. Like, for sure. Abraham's bosom.
And when you were talking,
Yes.
my head.
Oh my gosh, thank you for adding that, because it brought like like, oh my gosh, I just saw it.
But it's,
Messiah did not use anything by coincidence. He knew exactly what he was doing and saying.
that rich person was basically cut off.
Yes, and but I wanted to add to that the rich person was actually making a mockery of the poor person, right? He's like, ugh, like he was asking for, like, give me a little something, some money or some food to eat, and look how then he begs him, like, oh, please, can you at least send him to what my, the tables turn. So true riches is not anything that this life can offer you. As a matter of fact, when Messiah was tempted, what he was tempted with, Satan tempts him with offering him all the kingdoms of this life, of this world, basically making him a king and giving him basically like on the high mountain, like Hollywood, for example, and offering him all the fame
Position.
and all the position, right? And all the moolah. And clearly Messiah knows what's up because he is a word. He was the word incarnated in that moment, but he was a walking word of Abba. And so he's like, help me, please. Come on now. Like, I know what's up. But that's how he deceives the world now, you know? And so don't focus on people like, all this hashtag blessed. Look at me with my new car. Hashtag blessed. Look at me with my new house, my new jewelry. Hashtag blessed. No, no, that's not true blessing, guys. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying that he cannot give you the desires of your heart if your heart is in the right place, right? He could give you more than what we even deserve, right? I feel like I have more than I deserve. I have a house, I have a car, I have a steady job, right? However, that's not my focus. Like it's not my like you get what I'm saying? Like yes, we ask for things, financial breakthroughs or whatnot, because he does want us to be comfortable at the end of the day. Um, but let's not focus on that, right? As our blessings. Matthew 1:1. This is just to point the genealogy, how it goes straight. Matthew 1 goes straight to Abraham. Look, the book of genealogy of Yahshua HaMashiach, the son of David, the son of Abraham, the true papa, the true forefather, basically. Luke 3:34, the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And then it actually mentions Terah and Nahor. However, we know that Abraham is the one that was set apart from these two, and his seed, meaning Isaac and then Jacob, are then the righteous seed of the covenant, right? The seed that led to Yahshua HaMashiach. Acts 3:25, you are the sons of the prophets and of the covenant with the Most High made with our fathers, saying to Abraham, and in your seed all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Hashtag blessed. Romans 11, yes, I want to include this one here too. Romans 11:15, for if their being cast away is the reconciling of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? And this is just to connect the fact that being cast away, meaning being set apart. For if they're being basically set apart is the reconciling of the world. In other words, it doesn't go hand in hand. You don't become part of this world so you can be accepted. So Paul is basically kind of using kind of a metaphor by saying like, so if being cast away is the reconciling of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? In other words, what he's basically trying to say, if you're gonna supposedly be set apart to be part of this world, then what's your acceptance in this life? Like what are you going to earn in this life? You're to look different than the world because your true blessing is not of this world. It's not this life. Again, we're kind of like, I always like to, my children always say this, and I like using that we are kind of like in a, what's it called? A game. Oh my gosh, there's a name that Christian always says.
Game?
Yeah, no, but there's a name to that.
Simulation?
A simulation, yes, thank you. Like we're in a simulation under the dome, and we're literally in a simulation to see who passes the game. Like whether it's game over. They always talk about that, and it's so true. Like, because they talk about these movies. The Matrix is a good one. The one with the they're blue. What they're called this. The Avatar, yeah. I don't know. I've never seen the Avatar, but they were saying like we're basically Avatar. Like Christian always, when we read scriptures like this, he always talks about like we're basically avatars. And I'm like, I guess I don't know. I've never seen the movie, but but yeah, we're basically in a simulation, and that's why we're called to be set apart. These girls are, I don't know. Okay, Galatians 3:8. And the scripture foreseeing that the Most High would justify the Gentiles by faith, meaning who are the Gentiles? The nations, right? Would justify the Gentiles by faith, preach the gospel to Abraham beforehand, saying, in you all the nations shall be blessed. It always takes me back. I did when I did the study on Galatians, so beautiful to see how Paul understood the seed of Abraham through his seed of the promise through Isaac, and seeing the fulfillment of the being grafted in, the cultivated olive tree. It's so beautiful to see the full picture. I'm sorry? Go. Super butchered.
But so think about how like people don't really know who he is, like who he used to follow. So they don't even know what he's saying. It's like, oh my God.
I want to share some of the things in the chat. Sorry, before I forget, okay? Ali was saying, come on, for the things seen are temporary, but the things unseen are eternal. Amen. And Nina added, that's why you see some of the richest people are miserable. Yes. And if they only have, and if they only have money, yes, absolutely. They're actually rich people are actually one of the most depressed people, believe it or not. The yeah, the more they have, it's like the more they want. And
Yes.
they're empty. And I'm not saying every rich person is the same, but I would say 9 out of 10.
I'm not allowed. They're
9 out
really
of 10. Yes, Alina, Gentile equals stranger, which also equals nations, right? And so, yes, we were strange to the covenant, but by faith, what faith? Faith in Messiah, following his word, obeying his commandments, right? We go back being grafted into the tree. So this is exactly what Paul is saying here. We were justified by faith, which is the same gospel that was preached beforehand. Interestingly, I want to say something. You know how I said that the gospel starts in Matthew?
It starts in Genesis.
It starts in Genesis. If you really read, pause and read, what gospel? The gospel preached to Abraham beforehand. Wow, so you mean to tell me Matthew was preached to Abraham? Because the gospel starts from the beginning, guys. Messiah is the gospel. It's the story of redemption. It starts from the very beginning. So Torah is the gospel. It's just crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
I was also thinking about how even like how there was atonement of sins through the animals. Like Abba wanted to redeem his people from the beginning,
Yes.
even from the Garden
Yes,
of Eden.
from the garden. It's just literally it starts from the beginning. Even right after Eve partakes of the forbidden fruit. What is the curse that he gives, and then what as a result he says like through her seed, basically her seed will step upon Satan's head, the serpent's head, right? So right there, bam, the gospel has been preached. From there, bam, Messiah's gonna come through her line. Not through Satan's seed, but through the other seed. you know?
They're being grafted in still back then. Like they would come from like foreign nations and then be grafted into Israel.
I always go back to the times of the Exodus, how the Egyptians that came with them were literally grafted in. And they became part of Israel. Hello, remember when we studied with Caleb, how Caleb was actually a Gentile and he ends up being one of the leaders together with Joshua? Because it had nothing to do with bloodline. It was about obedience, and it was so clear how Caleb was obedient. And because of that, he was chosen. Woo! We're gonna get there, but yes.
I was gonna say how even with the biblical feast, isn't there a way that even the Most High addresses like the feast for like the stranger and
Yes.
the servant and those people like
The stranger was to partake together with them, yes. Meaning being grafted in, yes.
and that's Torah, so I'm like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. Isaiah 41:27. The first time I said to Zion, look, there they are, and I will give to Jerusalem one who brings good tidings. Look, there they are all the nations grafted in. And giving to Jerusalem, we know it's the new Jerusalem. Oh my gosh, my eyes getting like I have like allergies in my eyes lately, and it's getting so annoying. It's getting very teary. Sorry. Ooh, let me see the chat again. Oh my goodness.
nice big
I wish I could share it. It's a tree. Alina's sharing. Oh my gosh, hold on. I need to do this.
roots and branches.
Yeah, I can't share it but it's basically showing the New Testament and the Oh, that's a good graphic. It's like coming from the tree of life, basically, and the roots being the Old Testament, meaning the Torah, right? And the prophets. The law and the prophets are the roots of the tree. I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Oof, my eye. Woo! Sorry, guys. Give me a second. I do, but upstairs, it's okay. I should just keep them with me because it's been like this. No, no, she's giving Katie a bath. All right, so Genesis 14:14. Now, actually, before I go, let's read verse 5. Because all of that was connecting with the first 5 verses. We have a lot for the beginning. So, verse 5, where it says, Then Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions that they had gathered, and the people whom they had acquired in Haran. And they departed to go to the land of Canaan. So they came to the land of Canaan. So we see once again that the goal was to make it to the land of Canaan, which is the promised land that is also given later to Moses and the people and the Israelites, right? So he's talking about that they gather their possessions, they gather all the people, right? So connecting with that, we have Genesis 14:14. Now, when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, meaning that was Lot, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house and went in pursuit as far as Dan. And why am I putting this for five? Oh yeah, because Lot is his brother's son, but there has been mentioned as his brother, but it's the same thing. Like his nephew is basically the brother that's been mentioned in chapter 14. We also see connecting with that verse, Genesis 11:31, and Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran. So here confirms it again. And his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and they went out with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to the land of Canaan, and they came to Haran and dwelt there. Genesis 13:18. Then Abram moved his tent and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Adon. And then Genesis 46:6, and they took their livestock and their goods, which they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to Egypt, Jacob and all his descendants with him. So we see how they basically are traveling back and forth. This is already with Jacob later, way later on, when Joseph was king of, not the king, but uh, like in a ruler position in Egypt, right? But we see that after they make it to the land of Canaan, they go back to Egypt. So yeah, it's a full circle, but we'll get to that part eventually to point to something. And then lastly, before I show the slides, or actually, no, not lastly, let me connect a few more before I show the slides. Verse 6, Abram passed through the land of the place of Shechem as far as the terebinth tree of Moreh, and the Canaanites were there in the land. So connecting with verse 6, let me just move this here. We have Hebrews 11:9. By faith, he dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. And this is speaking about Abraham. But notice how it says he dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, because the country he was looking for wasn't the promised physical land, it was the New Jerusalem. Deuteronomy 11:30. Are they not on the other side of the Jordan toward the settling sun in the land of the Canaanites who dwell in the plain opposite Gilgal beside the terebinth trees of Moreh? And this is just connecting. This is the Israelites later on before they conquer the promised land again, meaning the land of Canaan. That this is the exact same spot been mentioned here in verse 6 by the terebinth tree of Moreh. And the Canaanites were then in the land. You see? The exact same thing, nothing new. Same pattern, just backwards. Judges 7:1. Then Jerubbaal, this one is actually pretty cool. Then Jerubbaal, that is Gideon, and all the people who were with him rose early and encamped beside the well of Harod. So they encamped on the of the Midianites was on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley, continuing with 9:5. Then he went to his father's house at Ophrah and killed his brothers and 70 sons of Jerubbaal on one stone. But Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left because he hid himself. So this is connecting with six, no, yes, with six, because it talks about the same place. And let me see if it, let me show. Okay, the terebinth tree of Moreh, and we're gonna see that this all took place in the times of the judges. There's something that took place there, and we're gonna see is an altar. Okay, and that's the reason why I'm bringing that in. And this, by the way, these were still Gideon was still a righteous judge. This is before the judges went all crazy. which is why he had the grace. Genesis 10:18 through 19. The Arvadites, the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. Afterward, the families of the Canaanites were dispersed, and the border of the Canaanites was from the Sidon as you go toward Gerar, as far as Gaza, then as you go to Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and as far as Lasha. And again, this is just connecting the families of the Canaanites and how they were dispersed, connecting with the same region that Abraham was traveling to. Now, verse 7, where it says, you scared me. Verse 7, where it says, Then the Adon appeared to Abram and said, To your descendants I will give this land. And there he built an altar. This is what I was talking about in the terebinth tree of Moreh, right? And there he built an altar to the Adon who had appeared to him in this same spot, right? We're gonna go to connect that. Genesis 17:1. When Abram was 90 years old, the Adon appeared to Abram and said to him, I am the Almighty Elohim. Walk before me and be blameless. And again, this is, we're not reading the whole thing, but every time the Most High would appear to him, he had basically offered an oblation, come to an altar, come to a place. But we also see the connection of walking before him and being blameless. Genesis 18:1. Then the Adon appeared to him again by the terebinth trees of Mamre, as he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. Genesis 15, no, 13, 15. For all the land which you see, I give to you and to your descendants forever. And this has to do with the land of Canaan that we just read. Genesis 15:18. On the same day, the Adon made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your descendants, I have given this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. And there's so many connections with all those names, by the way, because you see that they come back up, but they come back up in Revelation. And even though they were a physical place, we know it's very spiritual. My theory is, and I honestly highly believe it, my theory is that the physical land of Canaan is where spiritual Eden is, meaning the Garden of Eden. And I believe that is also New Jerusalem as well, which is why they would always go back to there, like the migration always would take place there. And kind of leads me to believe that's why there were giants in the land. Think about it. They were trying to, I don't know, stay close to them portals, because you know how
And it's so crazy because
Eden was guarded.
was probably revealed
Oh
to
yeah,
them too.
yeah, I believe so. Because they had to do war. They had to basically kill all of them, get them out of there. They didn't want to leave Canaan. Both times, both times they did not. There's something special in physical Canaan, and so, and again, I believe that's why these rivers are mentioned again in the book of Revelation. Remember, Revelation is very spiritual.
Yes.
But again, Genesis 17:8. Also, I give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim. And again, how is this an everlasting possession? Everlasting means eternal. So if he's promising a land which you are a stranger, meaning you're no longer part of, that has, yes, both physical and spiritual meaning, because obviously he wasn't a part of Canaan. He wasn't a Canaanite, right? However, spiritually, the land did not belong to him. He had to earn his way back through obedience, right? And so he gives it again as an everlasting possession, and I will be their Elohim. And so I think it's spiritual, very spiritual, which is why I believe Eden is there. That's where Eden is. Yes?
This is so random. I hope it's not far-fetched. But when you were talking, I was thinking about how like when Messiah will come back and there will be like basically when he comes back, like there's gonna be like people outside of that door like wanting to get in. And I'm talking about the virgins and also
Yeah, yeah. Spiritually
and
speaking, yeah.
the wedding,
Yeah.
when it's the wedding supper, like the door is gonna be closed and
Yeah.
people outside the door. But that's Eden. Like
It
you
is
can't
New
get-
Jerusalem,
you
yeah.
can't get in there
You
if
can't.
you don't have your ticket to get in.
Exactly.
So,
Very good
The
observation. Very
door of
good.
salvation is him.
Very good observation. Your
Yeah.
garments
He's the door of salvation, but if you're not,
and obedience
Yeah.
is what's gonna give you that garment. Yeah. So Deuteronomy 34:4. Then the Adon said to him, This is the land of which I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have caused you to see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there. So interestingly, this is when Moses is allowed to see Canaan, right? But he's not allowed to physically enter. I believe the reason why he was so happy is because he was able to see the actual land. I think in the spirit, he was able to actually see this is the New Jerusalem, which is why he couldn't cross over because it wasn't the time yet. That comes after the resurrection. Then he goes. Then obviously Moses will be there. But I believe that at that time he wasn't allowed. He was only allowed to see it. And that's again my understanding from that. Psalms 105, 9, 12, the covenant which he made with Abraham and his oath to Isaac and confirmed it to Jacob as a statute. Remember what I said about the three witnesses? Confirmed it to Jacob for a statute, to Israel as an everlasting covenant, because we know Jacob is Israel. They're the same. Okay. Verse 11 saying, to you I will give the land of Canaan as the allotment of your inheritance, when they were few in number, indeed very few, and strangers in it. Acts 7, 5. And the Most High gave him no inheritance in it, not even enough to set his foot on. But even when Abraham had no child, he promised to give it to him for a possession and to his descendants after him. Such a beautiful story that Stephen did there, like connecting the full picture to these blind people who did not understand a word he was saying because they ended up killing him. Galatians 3:16, again, Paul. Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He does not say, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and your seed, who is Messiah. And it's interesting because that takes it all back to the two seeds that stem from the garden, the seed of the tree of life and the seed of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So the one that is given the baton to continue in that seed is Abraham through his obedience. We also have, let me see. Yeah, let me just read these two more. Galatians 13, 4 and 18, to the place of the altar which he had made there at first, and there Abram called on the name of the Adon. Then Abram moved his tent and went and dwelt by the terebinth trees of Mamre, which are in Hebron, and built an altar there to the Adon. That's the connection I have made earlier, by the way, just the same one, but later in chapter 13. Genesis 22, 9, then they came to the place of which the Adon had told them, and Abraham built an altar there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Isaac and Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. So we're gonna see that there. That's the biggest test of his faith right there. But we do see the connection with the altar. He's offering oblation, and nonetheless his own son. For that, we're going to bring Joshua, guys. And I'm going to encourage you when we get to that point, please tell me you were reading Joshua, because there ain't no way we can go into that account without bringing. There's so much detail in Joshua. Oh my gosh, I cried. I remember crying. It was beautiful. All right. So verse 8. And he moved from there to the mountain east of Bethel, and he pitched his tent with Bethel on the west of Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Adon and called on the name of the Adon. And we're just going to connect how many times that they called on the name. And I believe it's because they knew his name. From Genesis 4, we see it. And as for Seth, to him also a son was born, and his name was Enosh. The man began to call on the name of the Adon. Genesis 13, 4, to the place of the altar which he had made at first. And there Abram called on the name of the Adon. Genesis 21, 33, then Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there called on the name of the Adon, the everlasting Elohim. So that's just to point every single time they called on the name. So yes, the name is important. And I believe it's Haya. I am that I am.
In Hebrew.
In Hebrew, yes. Verse 9, where it says that, so Abraham journeyed going on still toward the south. And I'm going to take a little, I'm going to make a little connection here that I want to just for us to see together. But before, let's just connect these verses. Genesis 13, 1 and 3. Then Abram went up from Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, to the south. And he went on his journey from the south as far as Bethel, to the place where his tent had been in the beginning, between Bethel and Ai. Genesis 20, verse 1. And Abraham journeyed from there again to the south, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. Genesis 24, verse 62. Now Isaac came from the way of Beer Lahai Roi, for he dwelt again in the south. So if you notice here, that word south in Hebrew is Negev. And I took a little extra step. I went on the Strong Concordance over here, and I looked at the word where it says toward the south. And I looked, which is Negev, right? The south. And I looked in the Strong's Concordance, and I saw that it's obviously a south country, Negev, in the south, the region of southern Judah. So physically where it was located was around Jerusalem, because we know that Judah located in Jerusalem, right? Which is in the land of Canaan, the promised land, right? So that south is within Canaan, the land of Canaan, which later turns to be Jerusalem, right? Which is where I believe, once again, the New Jerusalem is. And why I want to show you this, because the south, we're going to see down here, if you look in Blue Letter Bible, it gives you all the parts that it speaks about the same root for that word south, right? Which is Negev. And what I want to show you guys, because we read a few of these already, what I want to show you guys, it's so many times. For example, Exodus 26, 18. And you shall make the boards for the tabernacle, 20 boards for the south side. And then it says, Exodus 27, 9, you shall also make the court of the tabernacle for the south side. There shall be hangings for the court made of the woven linen and 100 cubits long. So it's talking about the south part of the tabernacle, which we know is foreshadowing of New Jerusalem, right? What we are to become. It talks a lot about the south side of the tabernacle. But something even more interesting, look, Exodus 40, 24, he put the lampstand, meaning the menorah, in the tabernacle of meeting across from the table on the south side of the tabernacle. So I wanted to talk about that, because the menorah in the book of Revelation, it says that it represents the seven churches, which in essence represents his bride, his church in general, right? And so his church is placed on the south side of the tabernacle. And that's what caught my attention, because that word Negev is the same word being used here for the south side of the tabernacle, and where the lampstand, meaning the menorah, was to be placed. I don't know. I just feel like that same place, going back, we're going to go. There's more I wanted to show, but I don't want to take too long on this. But I just wanted to show, if you guys keep reading, you're going to find a lot more connections. But going back to where it says that he journeyed, going still toward the south, where he journeyed was literally to that part south that has been mentioned later, referencing the tabernacle. So I don't know, foreshadowing inside the New Jerusalem. That's what I believe. So having shared all that, we're going to go and share, there. We're going to go ahead and share it's going to sound a lot redundant, but it's going to help you understand the full message that I'm trying to highlight here. So again, Genesis 12 marks a turning point in scripture, in case you haven't noticed it already. So as the nations move away from the Adon, like again, remember I had said how Terah, the father of Abram, was literally worshiping other gods, right? The gods of the other nations. We see that the Most High calls one man to begin a work of redemption for all people. And this is when the gospel begins, my peoples, right? Well, it begins in Genesis altogether, but we see it being put to practice, or the works being put. Abram is asked to leave what is familiar before seeing what is promised, including his own family, right? This chapter introduces the covenant pattern that shapes the rest of scripture, which is separation, trust, promise, testing, and divine faithfulness. Through Abram, the seed of blessing is planted, one that will ultimately be fulfilled in our Mashiach. What begins here is not just a journey of faith, but the foundation of salvation history, which is why I said the gospel begins in Genesis. And I wanted to reiterate that. So why did Abram leave everything behind? In verse 1, we see, go from your country, your people, and your father's house. We see the call to leave, right? The Adon calls Abram into separation before his destination. And that is key for us, which is why Jessica was saying, come out of her, my people, right? We see that in Revelation even before we make it to the New Jerusalem. He calls, it says, come out of her, my people. So this is not just relocation, it is rescue. As we see, we read already in Isaiah 29:22. Later interpreters understood Abram as being redeemed out of Ur, not casually leaving it. So yes, I believe that as well. He's been redeemed, not, oh, I'm just going to leave these people behind, right? No, he's come out of her, my people. He's being redeemed, saved from it, right? So to leave meant abandoning idols, systems, and identity tied to pagan nations, which again, in the account of Joshua, we see a lot more details of what he did in terms of the idols. Like he took it to heart and then he took it to action, right? So the echoes and witnesses, as we read in Acts 7, 2-3, as well as Hebrews 11, 8, obedience without full knowledge is what faith is, right? Not understanding something, you don't know where you're going or why you're doing it, but you still obey. Ruth 2:11, we see how Ruth mirrors Abram's faith journey. She was willing to leave everything behind to worship the Elohim of this new family that she was grafted into. Genesis 13:9, we saw that trust in the Adon's leading is not control. It's literally him guiding us and us trusting that he knows best for us, right? So redemption often begins with a command to leave, and that is key. Redemption, I'm going to say it again, often begins with a command to leave. What is he calling you to leave? What is he calling you today to come out of? Your culture, your practices, your even people, places, things, come out of her. Again, he tells Abraham on verse 2, I will make you into a great nation and you shall be a blessing. We saw the promise unfolds progressively, not instantly, right? Abraham is made into something over time. The blessing is never meant to terminate on Abraham. It flows outward because he is to be the father of the nations. And through him, all nations shall be blessed. So it flows outward, right? He becomes a great nation, meaning he becomes Israel, a great nation through him, right? Israel stems. And through Israel, all nations are blessed when they are grafted back into the one great nation. Does that make sense? So the covenant expansion, we saw it in Genesis 17:4-6, and in 22:17, the multiplication beyond human limits. Deuteronomy, we saw it again in Deuteronomy 26:5, from wandering Aramean to nation. Galatians 3:14, blessing extended to the nations through faith. And we know that was through the being grafted in. So the Adon forms nations the same way he forms people, slowly and faithfully. Let me see, somebody was sharing something. What do you want me to repeat? The statement prior to you mentioning what do you need to come out of? Oh, you want me to repeat what you need to, basically, sometimes we need to come out of culture, traditions, people, places, things. Sometimes we just need to leave things behind in order to have the same promise of redemption, the same promise of becoming a great nation together with his people. I don't know if that makes sense. But yes, we are called to come out of her, my people, as we see over and over throughout scriptures. That doesn't necessarily mean just a place. With Abraham, it wasn't just a place. It was what was familiar to him. It was abandoning his pagan practices that his family was very much practicing. It was abandoning everything that had nothing to do with the Most High and obeying him. Okay. So verse 3, blessing and curse formula. When he says, I will bless those who bless you. And we see it throughout scriptures. And those who curse Israel were cursed, which is why Balak wanted Balaam to go and curse Israel. And he was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. The Most High forbid me. Like, no, I can't. So Abram becomes a measuring line among the nations. This pattern echoes repeatedly in scripture. Like I said, it's a reinforced pattern. We saw it in Numbers 24:9 with Balaam's oracle. That repeats Genesis 12:3. We saw it in Zechariah 8:13, Israel restored from curse to blessing. And we saw it also in Psalm 72:17, the name that blesses all nations. The messianic fulfillment, Matthew 1:1 and Luke 3:34, we saw Messiah traced straightforward to Abraham, right? Acts 3:25 and Galatians 3:8, we saw the gospel preached in advance to all the nations, meaning from the times of Abraham. Romans 11:15, we see the nations grafted into Abraham's tree, which is how we get the cultivated olive tree, right? So the promise was always bigger than land. It was redemption. And the land, understand that I believe is the new Jerusalem, is eternal life. So leaving with increase, we saw again, Genesis 46:6 says, they also took the livestock and possessions they had acquired in the land of Canaan, and Jacob and all his offspring went to Egypt. So we saw that they had increased. Wherever they went, they were multiplying, right? So Abram leaves with people, possessions, and souls gained. Mirrors Genesis 46:6, what I just read, families moving with increase. Obedience, in other words, produces movement, and movement produces multiplication. Understand, yes, that it is a very narrow path, and not everyone will follow along the journey. However, your obedience at the very least should be provoking a movement. Okay? And that is the idea from this. So again, so faith comes from hearing, and this is found in Romans 10:17, and hearing from the word of Mashiach, or the word of God, which is himself, right? Faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word. And what does the word tell us to do? We have to believe it and act upon it. So to summarize, verses 6 through 9, in 6 we see the oak at Shechem, and I put this is an oak, which are trees, right? It all goes back to the trees. Abram stops at the oak of Moreh, a sacred site, and again, I believe there's a connection there. Trees in scriptures often mark divine encounters, sacred continuity. We saw it in Judges when Abimelech crowned at the same oak. Genesis 35:4, Jacob buries idols there. Interestingly, right? Covenant history begins at holy ground. Verse 7, the promised land, or the promise of the land. The Adon appears and confirms, to your seed I will give this land. Abram responds with an altar. Key truth, the promise is to the seed and is fulfilled ultimately in Messiah, as we saw in Galatians 3:16. So altars follow encounters, which is what I was trying to point earlier when I was connecting the precepts with every time that the Most High would encounter Abraham was after doing an oblation or putting together an altar for him, basically worshiping him, right? Verses 8 through 9, so we see him going from altar to altar. So Abram lives in tents, but builds altars. He calls on the name of the Most High, like I showed you, and temporary dwelling means to permanent devotion. Yes.
Sorry. No, it's
No, it's okay.
to the tabernacle, how like he says like to always have the oil continually burning, like the menorah.
Yes.
Like, it's like the same symbolism of like that constant devotion that you're saying.
Yes,
Always
with it.
being in that state of like worshiping him.
Absolutely. Because we know now we don't just make up an altar and sacrifice an animal, but it's spiritual now. Our obedience is literally us making an altar for him. What are we placing on that altar too? Because many people have altars for other gods or other people or even themselves. Check yourself before you break yourself. We right? We are to do an altar for him, and the altar is not a physical one, but it's our obedience. And who are we giving our worship to?
Yeah.
Who are we worshiping?
Because altar.
Come on, exactly that. Yes, yes. So now lastly, we're going to connect this last half, which has less connections, but we're going to go through them quickly. So verse 10, where it says, now there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down to Egypt to dwell there, for the famine was severe in the land. And we see it's so crazy because that's exactly what we see later when they go back into Egypt. They go back because there was a famine in the land. So it's crazy how the same storyline, Abba repeats it. It's like in cycles, right? So he's trying to show a message. Oops, what did I do? I brought that down. Okay. So Genesis, connecting with that, Genesis 26, verse 1. There was a famine in the land besides the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines in Gerar. Another famine here found in Psalms 105:13. When they went from one nation to another, from one kingdom to another. I didn't put the If you continue, it shows how there was famine. Basically, is what I wanted to point out there. Genesis 43:1. Now the famine was severe in the land later on in the times of Jacob, going back to Egypt, right? For verse 11, where it says, and it came to pass when he was close to entering Egypt that he said to Sarai, his wife, indeed, I know that you are a woman of beautiful countenance. Therefore, it would happen when the Egyptians see you that they will say, this is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will let you live. I'm going to read just this three to connect all of them together. Please say you are my sister, that it may be well with me for your sake, and that I may live because of you. So right there we see the famine comes and it leads to fear. I don't know if you guys see that connection. So there was a famine in the land on the way to the promised land. Fear comes in, right? And we're gonna see he basically wasn't lying. I'm gonna show you why. But still, the point of the matter is that fear came in. So connecting with all those three, Genesis 12:4. So Abram departed as the Adon had spoken to him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. So we see he was already advanced in age, right? Genesis 26:7. And the men of the place asked about his wife, and he said, she is my sister. For he was afraid to say, she is my wife, because he thought lest the men of the place kill me for Rebekah, because she is beautiful to behold. So this is Isaac, by the way, later on. The same exact thing his father Abraham does, Isaac repeats the same pattern and says, Rebecca's my sister. Don't kill me. So I want to bring that up. We're going to talk a little bit more. But something I want to also, I brought this one in because interestingly, we see that the women that the Most High elects for them were beautiful, apparently. Sarai was beautiful. We see Rebecca was very beautiful. It says that she was beautiful to behold. Now check out Rachel. On Genesis 29, verse 17, it says, Leah's eyes were delicate, but Rachel was beautiful of form and appearance. So Leah was like, whatever, or Leah, however you guys want to pronounce that. And Rachel was like a hottie, which Joseph must, that's why Joseph was so, Joseph was, no, remember in Joshua that the women were like, oh my God. We should bring, when we get to that part, we need to bring in Joshua because that's a funny part. All right. Genesis 20:11, and Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of the Adon is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my wife. So surely the fear of the Adon is not in this place. In other words, he doubted there. He feared. And so he brought out the fact that his wife was actually his sister out of fear. And that's the part I'm trying to bring in. Let's continue. Genesis 26, verse 7. And the man of the place asked about his wife, and he said, she is my sister. For he was afraid to say, she is my wife, because he thought lest the men of the place kill me. Oh, this is the same one, on account of Rebekah. Genesis 20, verse 2 and verse 12. Now Abraham said of Sarah, his wife, she is my sister. Okay, I'm reading the same things over and over. But indeed, she is truly my sister. Okay, here's the part, verse 12, where it shows how he was not lying. It says, but indeed, she is truly my sister. She is my daughter. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. In other words, she was his half sister. Okay, so he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying. He was the daughter of, she was the daughter of what's it called? She wasn't the daughter of they didn't have the same mother, but they have the same father. So yeah, they were siblings. And so was Rebecca. We're gonna see it later. Rebecca, he doesn't lie either. But anyway, Genesis 26. Remember, in those days they had to, and they were trying to avoid marrying the Canaanites because that was what the Most High had commanded. Yeah. So, all right. So Genesis 26, 6-11. Where it says, so Isaac dwelt in Gerar, and the men of the place asked about his wife, and he said, now this is more like the full account, by the way. And he said, she is my sister, for he was afraid to say she is my wife because he thought lest the men of the place kill me. Okay, I'm going to skip that. Verse 8. Now it came to pass when he had been there a long time that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked through a window and saw, and there was Isaac showing endearment to Rebekah, his wife. Then Abimelech called Isaac and said, quite obviously she is your wife. So how could you say she is my sister? Isaac said to him, because I said, lest I die on account of her. And Abimelech said, what is it that you have done to us? One of the people might soon have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt on us. So Abimelech charged all his people, saying, he who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So the Abimelech, which was of another nation, and have more fear in that moment, they're like, oh, do not touch this man's wife, because we're going to be cursed. They understood that, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. And if you curse them, you'll be cursed. And by the way, that saying of, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed, and curse Israel, you'll be cursed, is so taken out of context today, because churchianity today believes that if you pray for the country in the Middle East, that's where your blessings stem from. Yes, we're called to pray for all nations. We're called to pray for all people, but that's not what it means. It's literally his people in covenant. Romans 11 is very clear that those that don't believe in Messiah, meaning accept Messiah, have faith in Messiah, and obey his voice, are cut off. Like those that don't do that are cut off from the tree. In other words, you're not Israel if you don't believe in Messiah. I just want to throw that out there in case you still have doubts. Genesis 20, verse 14. Then Abimelech took sheep, oxen, and male and female servants and gave them to Abraham, and he restored Sarah, his wife, to him. And again, we see Abimelech twice. Abimelech the father and Abimelech the son. So we see Abimelech the father in the account of Abraham and Abimelech the son in the account of Isaac. What are the coincidences of that, right? And the same storyline of them hiding or lying, or quote unquote lying about their wives, Genesis 13:2. Abram was very rich in livestock, in silver and in gold. We know that, but we know he did not care about those riches. Genesis 12:17. But the Adon plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Again, he will curse those who curse you, and he will bless those who bless you. Go straight, beginning with Abram. And which is why we're going to see that is the reason why, or as we read, I'm sorry, not we will see, as we read, that's the reason why Pharaoh, not Abimelech, but later Abimelech as well. But Pharaoh returns the wife, because he's like, dang, it's the same idea if you think about it as in the Exodus, and I have it down here. Actually, let's read it already. Exodus 11:1. And the Adon said to Moses, I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. Afterward, he will let you go from here. When he lets you go, he will surely drive you out of here altogether. So it's the same in the account of Abram, for example. It is with his wife, right? If they touch his wife, the Pharaoh was plagued, right? In the account of Moses, the people who are foreshadow his bride, get it?
Committing adultery with God.
No.
Oh.
Meaning, no.
I'm sorry.
No. Wait.
Sorry.
No, the people are foreshadowing his bride, like Israel, his bride, right? And so Pharaoh was abusing them, putting putting a yoke on their necks. And because of that, he plagues Pharaoh. And then on account of this, they have to let go of his bride, his people. It's the same thing with Abram and Sarah. Get it? Yes, foreshadow. That's what I mean. Yes. And so now us as being his people, whoever is messing up with us is gonna be cursed. Maybe we don't see it right now, but they will. It's part of the promise, and part of that will be, that fulfillment in Revelation, where it says, Revelation 3:9, where it says, and they'll bow down and know that I have loved you. 3:9, yes, Revelation 3:9. Like, they'll know that I have loved you, meaning you're my bride, you are my people in covenant. And everyone will know that I have loved you. In other words, it goes back full circle. Yes. Genesis 29:9-10. Hold on, let me see where I'm at with this. Because I don't know if this is this is actually connecting already with verse 18. So before I go to 18, I want to read 17, because just to show something in the Targums really quick, it says verse 17, but the Adon plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And we see that it says here the Adon plagued Pharaoh, but we're going to see that the Targums add specifics, 17. And the word of the Adon sent great plagues against Pharaoh and the men of his house on account of Sarah, Abram's wife. So in other words, it was Messiah. from the beginning. The word of the Adon we know is Messiah. So I always like to point that out whenever I find it in the Targums because it's so clear to see that who was the Adon that was leading Moses out of captivity and into the wilderness, who's the one that gave him the commandments, who was the one in the burning bush. He was from the beginning. Okay. Understanding that makes us appreciate him so much more and not separate him from the Father, because a lot of times I'll see, oh, the God of the Old Testament is the Father and then the God of the New Testament is the Son. No. He was the messenger from the beginning. Messiah was the one who actually created mankind to their image, meaning father and son. And because of how his own creation messed up, he's like, I'm going to go rescue them. And the father basically gives him the authority. Go rescue your own creation. You made them. Go rescue them, you know? And then obviously he's the messenger that leads him back to the covenant of the Father, right? So it's just a beautiful love story from the beginning. Because we even see in Matthew how in the parable of the wedding supper, how it says that the man sent forth for his son's wedding. Like the father sends forth, uh, like he was sending out to come to the son's wedding. Get it? The wedding is for Messiah, but the father is sending. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying. Yeah. So, yes. So, verse 14, where it says, And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that you have done to me? Why did you not tell me that she was your wife? And then I'm just going to read 19 and 20 so I can connect 18 and 20. So, why did you say she is my sister? I might have taken her as my wife. Now, therefore, here's your wife. Take her and go your way. And I read this and I cannot not see Pharaoh letting go of Israel. You know, like, take her, take them, get out of my way. Yes, yes, I cannot unsee that. So Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away and his wife and all that they had. Remember that the Israelites were let go with all the possessions, and not only with all their possessions, but they plundered the Egyptians. So they came out even with more things. So yes, yes, yes.
Spark fetch, but when you were talking, I was thinking about Passover, and I was literally thinking about how him and his wife were passing over, like leaving Pharaoh's
Yeah.
house.
Oh no, no, no. Yeah. It's literally the same thing. They're leaving Egypt to the promised land. It's crazy. It's a seam. It goes around and around. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so cool.
The cleansing.
Yes, yes. All right, Genesis 29 through 10. And Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, What have you done to us? How have I offended you that you have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? You have done deeds to me that ought not to be done. Then Abimelech said to Abraham, What did you have in view that you have done this thing? And again, I'm bringing this in because on chapter 12 is with Pharaoh. It's something else. This one in chapter 20, it's again that he does the same thing, and Abimelech is plagued with the same thing. So we see that it continues. It's whoever messes with his people is going to be cursed, right? Genesis 26:10, and Abimelech said, and now this is with Isaac. And then Genesis 12:20, so Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. I put that there, but really what I want to read is from the Septuagint, just to add that Lot was with him at that time. In the Septuagint, we see in that same Bible verse, just so we can see a little difference here. And Pharaoh gave charge to men concerning Abram, and to join in sending him forward, and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him. So we see that Lot was still with him at that point. That's just to confirm that, nothing crazy there, but just wanted to show that, which is why I added it there. And then lastly, Proverbs 21:1, the king's heart is in the hand of the Adon, like the rivers of water. He turns it wherever he wishes. Why did I add there? Because I believe the Most High allowed those things with the Pharaoh in Moses, I mean in Abraham's time, with Abimelech in Abraham's time, and with Abimelech later with Isaac's time, and then later with Moses and Pharaoh, because he basically turns the king's hearts, the Pharaoh's heart, as he pleases, to do and perform his perfect will. So now let's just wrap it up with the slides.
Things work out for the good for those.
Amen. All right. So verse 10 again, famine in the promise. So we saw a famine. Remember, I highlighted the word famine there. So a promised land can still feel barren. And that is key. That is the message that we must understand because it repeats itself in our lives today. Obedience does not cancel testing. As a matter of fact, when you're obedient, you will be tested. Look at Abraham, our father. Hello. Obedience needs to be tested to see if it's just you're just saying things out of your mouth or if you truly mean it, if it's in your heart. It needs to be tested, which is why when they are taken out of Egypt once again and taken into the promised land, they need to be tested in the wilderness, right? Remember in Deuteronomy it says that he kept them there to see whether they would keep his commandments or not, right? So obedience does not cancel testing. Abram goes to Egypt, no instruction recorded from the Adon, but it does not cancel out the famine that he had to endure and go through on his way to the promised land and in his way of being obedient. Like the graphics, guys, I like them too. I found them on Pinterest. Anyway, verses 11 through 13, we see that fear repeats itself again. Let me move this out of the way. Sorry. Genesis 26:7 again. And he said, she is my sister, for he was afraid to say, she is my wife, because he thought, lest the men or of the place kill me for Rebekah, because she is beautiful to behold. And this is speaking of Isaac, but again, fear struck Abraham as well. So we see Abram asks Sarai to say she is his sister. This pattern repeats with Isaac, as we just read over here. Fear produces cycles when faith is interrupted. And that is what I see here. Literally, the cycle continues through your generations when you entertain fear. It's so crazy. I don't think it's by coincidence that the Adon included another Abimelech in the story. You know, Abimelech father, Abimelech Jr. Let's do the same pattern all over again. It's crazy to me. Verses 16 through 17, we see the plagues and we see the protection, right? Moses follows the pattern Abraham first walked. Pharaoh's house is struck with plagues. Language mirrors the Exodus, like we were talking already. Intentional foreshadowing. I believe it's super intentional. Plague in Hebrew, it's sent forth. Send forth. Exodus 11:1. Exodus 12:32, we already read it. Verses 18 through 20, sent out. Pharaoh confronts Abram and sends him away. Abram leaves wealthier but corrected. So in the Septuagint, it adds a Lot is there to prepare for Genesis 13, because we see later when Lot comes in the picture, which to me makes sense, and that's why I added the Septuagint precept. So grace preserves the promise even when the patriarch is silent. So we see that the father was very gracious, but there was fear. So to wrap it all up, final insight, the pattern repeats. Come out of her, my people, and be set apart. Genesis 12 sets a pattern that echoes throughout scripture. The Adon calls Abram to come out from the nations, their gods and their systems, so he can form a people who belong to the Most High. Separation is not about isolation, but identity. Identity in who? In him, in our Father, right? The same call appears when Israel is brought out of Egypt, and later when the Adon says, come out of her, my people, in Revelation 18, right? Covenant begins with trust, often before understanding, and the Most High remains faithful even when the journey includes testing. And I said even when, but it will include testing. Understand that. But the Most High calls out, he calls into purpose and ultimately into redemption through Messiah. And that is the whole point of coming out of her, is to be redeemed. Come out of her, my people, right? Abram leaves Ur. Israel leaves Egypt. The people of the Adon are called to separate. And with that, we end this beautiful chapter. Thank you for breaking bread with us. It was sweet,
Really good.
to the point. I think we can all benefit from understanding this chapter in its entirety, because this is where the promise stems from, and understanding that obedience is what's going to lead us into our redemption. Whether you have famine, whether you have testing, let's follow our father Abraham's footsteps and obey unto death. Literally, He was about to sacrifice his son. We're going to get to that part. But even before then, he was still obedient. He was still like going into all these lands, not knowing where he was going, just because the Most High asked him to do. Would you do that? Would you leave your comfort zone? Would you leave your house? Would you leave your family? Would you leave your nation? Would you leave your traditions if the Most High asks you to do it? That's what Abraham did, and we are to do the same. So may you have a very blessed evening, and we will see you guys next week in the same channel at the same time, same channel. Shalom.